It's Mark Brewer, director at Imp Travel in Lincoln. Yes, lots. Well, every year we sell holidays all over the UK. We do a lot of shearings holidays for the more mature people that go literally all over the UK. Scotland, Ireland, England, Wales. We do them to Butlins as well. All the Haven properties, we send people there. So literally all over the UK. Last year they became a lot more popular because the government and Tourist Board did a stay holiday, sort of a massive campaign with Wallace and Gromit that they used, and they did a lot of publicity in the press, and they sent us material out that we had just to say to people, look, you don't have to go abroad. There's places in the UK that you can go to that are just as nice as going abroad. There's not really anything I would say that's the most popular. A lot of people go down to London to see shows, and a lot of people head down to the south. They think it's where you're going to get the better weather, but you never know. But I mean, Scotland's really popular. Fort William, Oban, and going up, a lot of those people that go on a coach and organised tour, so they're not just driving up themselves, it's a long way. Sometimes people very, very rarely go right up to the top to do the Shetlands as well. Staying in the UK has become more popular with families over the last few years for the simple fact that the exchange rates for the euro has been incredibly poor, so it's made travelling abroad a lot more expensive. But over the last probably year or so, that's starting to move again because the last couple of summers we've had haven't been that good. If you're away in the UK and the weather's bad, it costs you a fortune to entertain them. So by the time you add all of that up, it is cheaper than going abroad, but you're not getting the sunshine, you're not getting to sit on a beach. The trends are there, they're always ups and downs, peaks and troughs. I would say there's probably more people staying in the UK. It's us trying to get the message over. There is no place better to go on holiday than in the UK. But if you don't get the weather, it's a nightmare. On the Haven holidays, you tend to find the average age is that bit younger as well. Butlins for the UK, you tend to find everybody because you'll get grandma and granddad will go with their son or daughter-in-law and then the children and their other son. So it does change massively from one area to another. When I was 9, we used to go to the coast. We used to go to Eggy and Cleethorpes, and we've got friends that live over on the Fitties there. We used to go to the sort of walk along the coast there. And it was good fun. It's just the weather is so annoying because there is no place better if we have the sunshine.
Heaven, I'm in heaven.
It was a Friday evening. We went all the way down to this station here, Woburn Sands. We were in an old farmer's truck. We were packed up for a week's holiday at somewhere we'd never heard of in the world, Mablethorpe. And we were all the first time away from their parents, more or less. And we went in this truck, then we had to catch a train. Anyway, it was with fields of tents. Well, some were put up, some weren't, so we got put up ourselves. So you can imagine what fun we had trying to put up a tent, can't you? Young between 10 and 11. Older girls, about 16, looking after us. And I remember we had all got ready for bed after we spent about 6 hours with the tent falling down as far. There was about 6 of us in this, I think, 6, 2 or 6, if I remember. And we had some sort of supper, but I can't remember what it was. I think it was a baked potato, but we had 2 people overseas, they call them captains. And, we all went to bed and I was allowed to go with my friend, same age as me, always been my friend. Of course, in the night, they must have been better sleeping than me because I remember thinking of my mum. About 3 o'clock in the morning, I must have woke the old lot up, crying for my mum, screaming for my mum, because there was a cow in there. The cows were licking them. They could have been, I suppose, because if they did this field, and they had it for holidays, and I think they're still using the ground today. People come from all walks of life to this field. In the Gold Guys, Luton, all sorts of places. Yeah.
Would you like to swing on a star? Carry moonbeams home in a jar? Would you see? She could tell at a glance that my heart was so full of tears.
That's the Woody Woodpecker's tune. Makes the other woodpecker.
Well, the best seaside holidays I can remember as a child when we went to Cornwall. We hadn't had many seaside holidays because it'd been during the war, so therefore we couldn't go to the beaches. They were covered in barbed wire and tank traps and goodness knows what. So when we finally did go, it was an absolute treat, and it was about 1948 to 1949. We had a fortnight and we went down to Cornwall. Now, we lived in Surrey, and my father drove all the way, that's 250 miles, and we had a 410 car, so it's only a little car, and I think it must have taken about 10 hours because he really couldn't go more than 30 or 40 miles an hour. And of course there was no traffic on the road, but there weren't motorways, it was just ordinary roads, not even dual carriageways. The thing I remember is that we went through Honiton, and there was always traffic hold up through Honiton. We always used to say, Honiton, we're going to get hold up here. And that was the only place we were held up for the whole of that 250-mile journey. We went down to near a little place near Newquay. It's called Whipserdary. This had a stage at a small hotel, and there were only 2 hotels on top of the cliffs. Well, these days, I think it's a wonderful place for surfing, and you'd have had all the international surfers there these days. And we stayed at this place. It was a huge cliff in Cornwall, very steep path up to it, or down to it really, and nobody on the beach at all except us. And far away there were some other people, and they didn't even wear swimsuits. They were in the nude, but I wasn't allowed to look at them. We couldn't go close. And all we did really was to sit on the beach, go in the rock pool, look for anemones, catch shrimp, and go surfing.
This was during the war, mind you, because the war started when I was about 5. And just on the odd occasion, we did still have holidays abroad, not in this country. We never went anywhere but this country, and not very far at that. Most of the beaches you couldn't get on anyway because there was all barbed wire and, defences along there. I could only have been about 2 or 3, and my mother knitted me a bathing costume, of which she was so proud. And I looked lovely in this knitted bathing costume until I went in the water. And then it dropped, and it looked as though I was carrying 2 pounds of potatoes in the bottom of it. And my mother was absolutely mortified, and I never wore it again. I know we went on one holiday when my 3 were young, and we had absolutely appalling weather. And the children were all dressed in their bathing costumes with jumpers and trousers on. And we were walking along, and all of a sudden the sun came out, and the 3 of them just stripped off and flew down to the water's edge. And everybody was laughing at them because it was freezing cold, and they saw the sun and thought, it's sunny, and everybody on the beach was laughing their heads off at them. Some lovely places in this country that I'm still finding. I mean, this first time I'd been to Scotland was 2 years ago, and this year I'm going to Ireland, and I've heard that's beautiful. And it's all the British Isles, it's still our country really, isn't it, because it isn't the same anywhere else. I mean, I have been abroad now in latter years, but there's never anything quite like the British beaches. I don't think so. But happy memories.
Round, round, get around, I get around, yeah, get around, round, round, I get around, I get around, round, round, I get around, get around, round, round, I get around, get around, round, round, I get around, get around, round, I can't get no satisfaction.
During the 60s, me and my family were staying in Cricket in North Wales. My brother and I thought it'd be fun to stay in a tent on the beach. The rest of the family were in the caravan. However, when we were just about to go to sleep, a massive thunderstorm started. Everything was soaked through. We nearly got washed out ourselves. So we ended up being squashed in the caravan with the rest of the family who weren't impressed. Another holiday I remember very well is going to Torquay. It was lovely playing French cricket on the beach with friends and family. We also played normal cricket, normally taking up the whole day. We usually get fish and chips afterwards. And I would try to eat lots of sweets too when my mum wasn't looking. I also remember wasting my money on those grabbing machines in the arcades. We tried to win the camera. We spent ages trying to get it, but all our hard work paid off. And me and my sister did win it. In the end, we were so happy, as you can imagine. The camera was a big thing in those days.
On my British seaside holiday, I went to Walton-on-the-Naze, which is in Essex. We went there between the ages of 6 and about 10. This would have been the late 50s and the early 60s. And we stayed in an apartment, which my father was very lucky to get because it went with his job. I went with my mum and my dad and my 2 brothers, and my grandma came with us some years. We always had to go the same 2 weeks in August because that was when my dad didn't work. So it was never a different time. And we often bumped into the same people there that were doing the same as us because they'd got the same 2 weeks off. So we made friends and saw them every year. The best thing about the holiday was the beach at Walton-on-the-Naze. The tide comes in twice a day, so it was always washed clean, and you could make fantastic sand castles because the sand was always damp. Favourite memories are probably to do with the beach, burying my dad in the sand on the pretext that he was in a racing car, but you could only see his head. I learnt to swim while we went on our holidays there. And there was also a fantastic amusement arcade on the pier, which we all loved, but it was very expensive. Spend the whole day on the beach or in the beach hut, and then have a late meal. In the evenings we mostly stayed in the apartment. Occasionally we'd all go out for a walk. Never go out to eat because that was very expensive and not something families did so much then. We used to take all our own food with us, so the car was absolutely stuffed full of food. We didn't have to buy anything in the expensive seaside shops. Rainy days, we'd still go down to the beach because we'd got the beach hut, and we'd sit in the beach hut until it stopped raining, really. Occasionally we'd walk around, there was some lovely gardens, or we did have lots of games in the apartment that we could play if it was really awful. We'd stay in there and play games. But I can't remember it raining much, it probably did, but you look back and think it was lovely all the time.
I started singing bye bye Miss American Pie. We had joy, we had fun, we had seasons in the sun, but the hills that we climbed were just seasons out of time.
Seaside holidays for me were always taken in the Easter holiday break because I lived by the seaside, so I made the use of the seaside myself in the summer. We used to go away every Easter, and we used to always have to have at least one swim in the sea over the holidays, which, as you can imagine, over Easter is often very, very cold, but nonetheless at least once we had to go swimming. I remember lots and lots of traditions on the holidays. We always had an early start at, say, 4 o'clock in the morning. We used to crawl into the back of the car. In those days, in an estate car, you could sit in the back without straps or anything. So we always used to crowd in there. We'd drive along. We'd stop at about 7 o'clock somewhere and have a breakfast picnic, which was always a roll with marmalade, butter, a hard-boiled egg and some cold sausages. I can remember the feeling of being so excited as you go, getting into the holiday the night before you can't go to see, a bit like Christmas. We usually spent the holidays into a self-catering thing, like a chalet or something like that. Mainly used to go to the West Country or to Norfolk, but mainly the West Country. Usually go for 2 weeks, pack all the stuff in there, go off and have a great time. Many happy memories of family summer holidays. Like the time when I nearly drowned my brother, me and my sister. We were at the top of the beach and we ordered him in that big sisterly way to go down and fetch some water for our sandcastles that we were making. He was probably about 3 at the time. All of a sudden we had a great big shout and a splash. He had fallen into the sea and was being rescued by people walking past. Luckily for us it was all okay. We had a bit of explaining to do when our parents got back from the walk that they'd been on, but we couldn't even look after him for a short time. Anyhow, all was well, and that was good. Whatever age you were, there was always something that you could do on the beach. As you got older, you'd have like barbecues and sort of parties and things like that. When you were younger, it was just digging and building sandcastles and collecting stones and just generally chilling out and having a really good fun time. And I have to say that all these memories I have from the seaside, both on holiday and at home, are just fantastic, happy memories that I keep with me every day.
I guess I must be about 9 years old, and when I was young we used to go on holidays to caravan parks and holiday parks. So some years we go to Butlins, Skegness, that was one of the ones I remember going to quite a lot, and sometimes we go across to Blackpool or Morecambe and stay at places like Pontins. And this year, one year I remember when I was about 9 years old, we actually went on a caravan holiday. And I can't remember going on a caravan holiday before this, but we went down to Great Yarmouth and we went to the Vauxhall Caravan Park, which I think still exists actually. And we stayed in a caravan, and so was me, there was my sister who's 3 years younger than me, she's called Claire, my mum and my dad, and we stayed in this caravan. And the other thing I remember, actually, just thinking about this, is for some very strange reason he had this thing that because of the change of water it meant you might get slightly constipated. So I seem to remember every family holiday we went on we were given this thing called X-Lax, it was a laxative, which is like dark chocolate, a little cube of dark chocolate. And even now I can't eat dark chocolate, it just makes me shake and quiver and go all very strange and funny. That's one of my memories of that holiday as well. Anyway, on the site, just like Butlins and just like Pontins, you have some kind of on-site camp entertainment with some kind of children's entertainer and some kind of compere. And this one I remember, I can picture him now with his grey hair and his ill-fitting suit, and he used to compare the entertainment in the evening, so the four of us would go along. My mum would probably once a week drink this thing called a snowball, which was a special drink we'd have on holiday, or she'd have on holiday because it was alcoholic. My dad, who didn't drink at all, just occasionally might have half a cider and then be slightly tipsy. And there was lots of entertainment, so there was bingo, which was very popular, maybe some dancing. And my mum claimed she could dance, so I would dance with her and probably tread all over her toes. And of course, one of the highlights of the week, well, many highlights of the week, because of course they had things like knobbly knees competitions and all sorts of things like that. But one of the highlights of the week was obviously the talent competition. And that was usually at the end of the week, because they'd have rounds, and at the end of the week you have the big final. Now, I should explain that by now my granddad was with us, because every single holiday we went on, Grandad would turn up and surprise us. He'd just drive up and all of a sudden he'd be walking through the campsite at Butlins, or he'd be on the monorail somewhere, or be in Blackpool or Morecambe, and by about Wednesday, bear in mind we usually went for 2 weeks, Saturday to Saturday. Anyway, what you've got to turn up and you'd see him, and it'd be a lovely surprise, and he'd come and stay in our caravan. So by now Grandad was staying there. Now remember, is by about 9 years old I was cherubic, is that a word? Angel-like, something like that. Anyway, a bit of a cherub. Come competition time, it was decided that I would tell a few jokes that I think, let's say my granddad taught me these jokes. Now, I didn't understand these. I was 9 years old and he taught me these, it turns out, quite adult jokes. Can't remember any of them, and even if I could remember them, I wouldn't tell you them now because they're probably quite rude. So he taught me all of these. So I probably had a lineup of about 5 or 6 jokes that I was going to tell. So there we were, big evening, Friday, Thursday evening, the end of the week. One of the big climaxes, the talent competition. An air of expectancy, all waiting to see who was going to come on. And one by one they came on. Singers, dancers, jugglers, all sorts. But fortunately, no comedian. Certainly no 9-year-old little blonde boy comedian. So it was my turn. So I walked up on stage, was introduced to the crowd. A few cheers, mainly from the people who come with me, the family, nobody else really. And I was introduced and interviewed by the compere, told them where I came from, Told him what I was interested in, which probably at that stage was probably football and playing on my bike and things like that, the average thing a 9-year-old would do. And then I was asked what I was going to do, and I said, well, I'm going to tell some jokes. So of course everybody in the audience thought, here we go, some knock-knock jokes and some lovely little sweet jokes this little boy is going to tell. So I stood on stage, everybody waiting. I took hold of the microphone off the compere. I seem to remember doing that, so I'm not going to have him holding it. Stood there, and I told my first joke, and everybody stopped. Absolute silence. Lots of red faces. They looked at each other and thought, this is a 9-year-old boy telling the rudest jokes we've ever heard. And then laughter. And it didn't stop. They loved it. They were laughing their heads off. Thought, well, if that's joke 1, wait till they hear joke 5. Anyway, so I worked through my repertoire, probably 5 or 6 jokes, each one gradually getting bluer and ruder as we went through. And, well, basically I went down a storm. And I won the competition, I won the trophy, and that was it. I was the talent star of that particular holiday in whatever year it might have been when I was 9 years old, back in the early 70s. And wow, did I wow them. I think I might even sign a few autographs afterwards as well. I know as you get older in this modern day, you prefer holidays, well, actually in the sunshine or maybe in the United States or something. But I have to say, I have such fond memories looking back to my childhood, such fond memories of British seaside resorts with the kiss me quick hats, the sticks of rock, the fish and chips sitting on the beach. Wonderful. Wasn't warm, but it was still wonderful.